Welcome to a muzzled chat. Now this is just going to be a bit of a info buff, kind of doubling down on episodes today because I'm actually feeling somewhat functional. Praise God. I feel very blessed. I wouldn't wish those feelings and dysfunction on anyone. It's like I was just existing and now I'm feeling more and more present in my body. And yet again, it's just one of them things that if you don't have your health, you don't have anything in this life. So as I was driving from another hyperbaric oxygen therapy treatment today, I was listening to another Stu Peters episode, and he's having this pretty learned doctor on that I like how she puts it, in rehabilitation from basically what was taught in medical schools, because it's healthy to question everything, come to find out, even what was taught in those schools. So the whole purpose for this is that so we can kind of question things healthily, because I mean, at the end of the day, I want the best you to every one of the listeners today in this world. So how do we achieve that, right? We've touched on some of the spiritual, nutritional, fitness, but there's a lot, some of the medical even. And as I come across information like this, I can't help like I've also come across a lot more information that adds to what they discuss right here and what they go over. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play this, and yeah, we can kind of discuss a little, go over a bit of it. But listen, if you want the direct source, I'll be sure to plug this episode in the comment section. Now just know there's so much more information out there that supports everything they're talking about. And it's just important that we get to the bottom of it, because this is regarding our health, our function, which is everything here.
Nailed it, in my opinion, is that that's one of the things that I stumbled across during COVID. You know, I started out just trying to understand, because I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I'm not a virologist or anything. So I started just studying everything as I got cancel cultured for talking about masks. So I started studying everything, and I suddenly stumbled across those German guys. And I said, wait a minute. And there were things showing up on the internet showing literally pictures of cancer cells with these microparasites. You could actually see them as they broke out. And, you know, for my whole career as a spine surgeon, I would biopsy little, you know, I could do it without opening up the spine. So they'd call me, and I'd go in and biopsy spine tumors. I'd send them off fresh to the pathologist. And little did I know all these years that sometimes pathologists saw little motion in these cells, and they called it like idiopathic cancer motion. They never asked themselves what's going on. But what if I told you that cancer, acne rosacea, multiple sclerosis, and rheumatoid arthritis, 4 different diseases in 4 different areas of medicine, what if they can all be treated with parasite medication? And that turns out for those diseases to be true. A pathologist, I think McDonald is his name, he was in Florida, I believe. He looked at 100% of dead MS patients. He had a series of 10 patients that died of multiple sclerosis. 100% of them had parasites in the brain and spinal cord.
100% of them.
In the area in which we think of, you know, when we do I'm a spine surgeon, I would do neurologic workups all the time. And, you know, you'd get an MRI of the brain and spinal cord to make the diagnosis, and they'd come back saying, oh, there are plaques on the brain and spinal cord. But we never asked, what are those plaques? We just said, oh, you have MS. So in the big picture here, we have a book called the ICD-10, which shows that we have 70,000 disease diagnoses you can come up with and codify for Medicare and Medicaid and all these different government agencies. Are there really 70,000 diseases, or are there 70,000 presentations of a few root causes?
Good question.
That's where we need to go back.
Yeah, we've talked about parasites on this program a lot. As a matter of fact, you go to purgesuddenly.com. We have a formula to fight parasites. And this formula, I know that you endorse this formula, but these things take over your body. and they
Right.
will defecate inside of you. They vomit inside of you. They eat all of the things that are good for you, and then they leave behind all of the poisons and toxins that are bad for you. It's basically an alien invasion of your body. Is that right?
That is right, and actually that may be truer than you know when you say alien invasion. I mean, are these things natural? You know, and I will say that in the big picture
Wait, are you
here,
suggesting that there's like lab-grown parasites that are intentionally released into our food and into the things that we consume in order to infiltrate our body? Do you really think that our government would do that to us?
Yeah, and it's not just our government. I'm going to tell you, we live in the Truman Show, and you know, it's really not just about the. You know, you've seen the movie. I mean, I just had seen it about a month ago, but it is such a good metaphor for where we are right now.
Yeah, Jim
When
Carrey.
people
For
don't-
those people who haven't seen it, The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey.
Yeah, and you know, he's born into a reality TV show. So he's born into a false reality. And for 30 years he lives in it without realizing it's a false reality. And why is that possible? Because it's internally consistent. And because the guys in the control room control the narrative. Now, here's one that I just discovered, and it really, because when you talk about science in this, people say, well, that might be true of politics, but that can't be true of science because, I mean, we got PhD students, we got universities, think tanks, we got all these publications. How can they all be lying? Well, let me just tell you, here's a little fun factoid, okay? After World War II, I mean, I'll just tell you the punchline, and then I'll tell you how it got there. The intelligence services, or the service created with Mossad, CIA, and MI6, they own they own all of scientific and medical publishing. What? Here's how I discovered that. After World War II, Charles Dalton Darwin, he's the grandson of Charles Darwin, the explorer, and Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. They got together, they went to the British government, they said, hey, look what happened in World War II, the science. We would have been a lot better off had we been able to really communicate well, and we need better scientific publishing around the world. And the British government, without consulting anybody, said, no problem, we can do that. And boom, why could they do that? Because the MI6 owned Buttersworth. MI6 being their equivalent of CIA.
Right.
Buttersworth, the biggest medical scientific journal in the world. So they and it's owned by their intelligence spy agency. Then they combined it with the Germans, and now guess who they made? You can't make this one up. The first editor-in-chief of the biggest now scientific publishing house in the world was Robert Maxwell. Okay, Robert Maxwell, who was provably a double agent. He worked for the British against the Germans in World War II. He was buried on the Mount of Olives, so he's a Mossad agent. But the claim to infamy is his daughter is Ghislaine Maxwell, pedophile consort of Jeffrey Epstein.
What a coinkydink.
I mean, it's a cute club, and we're not in it. But
right.
You have to control the narrative. You have to control publishing if you're going to pull off the Truman Show of science.
Right.
And they've done that. Okay, so they've let us. It's not just about this. It's about things like the PCR test. Okay. Here's, in the Truman Show, when he starts realizing he's in a false reality, this light falls from what he thinks is the sky, and it's a stage light, almost hits him. He goes, what? How can this be real? Well, for me, that light was the PCR test. And it's not just that they overcycled it. It's that when I ran those sequences on the PCR test through the index of genetic, where do things come from, it didn't show up SARS-CoV-2, the virus they claim. It showed up human genomes. There were 18 tests. I ran 12 of them, and then I gave up, and I said, dear God, they're testing to our own human genome.
So who wouldn't test positive then at that point?
Well, that's right. And so this is a beautiful thing. So so every test I ran came up, Homo sapiens gene 8, Homo sapiens gene 5, Homo sapiens this, Homo sapiens that. That's us. So, and I can tell you, I have an hour talk on this, why this is when you take a step out, just like Truman did, when you actually get outside the Truman Show, you realize everything they've been telling us, it just can't work that way. It sounds all sciencey, but it can't work like
so
they said.
So it's possible that the people who got this DNA-altering, gene-altering, mRNA, bioweapon poison injection, it's possible that they're no longer Homo sapien, which is why they might not ever test positive for COVID-19, and then they can tell you that it was an effective vaccine. Because they're no longer human. Is that possible? Is it possible that just because you haven't had it, you're always going to be a Homo sapien?
It's out there, sure.
I guess I think it's possible, but here's the other thing I would say, is that there's problems with that story too. I mean, is it really mRNA, or what are they really doing? What happened during COVID? What did they really do during COVID lockdowns? They put up these 5G towers. We have absolute proof of electromagnetic transmission of disease. It turns out that...
Did you guys hear that? Electromagnetic disease. Actual proof. And... that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of sources, on a cellular level.
mRNA has a half-life between 3.5 minutes and 16.5 hours. Even this altered mRNA. How do you even get that out of the factory in that time frame, right? If you're going to tell me that this is mRNA in the vaccines, you're going to have to explain to me how you made a vaccine round the clock in 14 seconds on average, around the clock in all your production facilities without one change even if you start 6 months before you got the EUA. You couldn't do it. They couldn't have made it that fast. and the mRNA does not last like they're saying.
Wow.
And I will just say that everything we're seeing, the blood clots, all the stuff we're seeing, it can all be explained by the nanoparticle, the lipid nanoparticle. You don't need mRNA to explain what we're seeing. So you're right. It could be they're changing our genome. It could be they're just doing what they've done for 1,000 years. They're poisoning us, they're irradiating us, and they're convincing us that we have infectious disease, so we have to run away from each other and put on a mask and do all these, standing 6 feet in a circle. Are you kidding me? It's a satanic ritual thing, but it doesn't make any scientific sense.
Yeah.
People bought it, hook, line, and sinker, because they used the fear tactic, right? That fear emotion will make people do things, even the strongest males who fear nothing. If they feel that feeling, if they feel the feeling of fear, you can literally make somebody do the unthinkable, something they would otherwise never, ever consider doing. Jumping out of the World Trade Center towers, for example. Running through your neighborhood naked in the middle of the night because you fear that somebody's coming in to kill your children. I mean, fear will make you do a lot of things. Even the strongest-minded people, you feel that sense, and all of a sudden you're doing things that you would normally never do, including injecting yourself with something that's not been tested, that just came to market.
Believing in viruses you can't prove exist. I mean, here's the thing. The good news in all this, when you look at how the Truman Show ends, because I do think there's predictive programming. They have to tell us kind of what they're doing to us. At the end of the game, he overcomes his fear. They gave him an artificial fear of water so he wouldn't leave the island. But he overcomes that fear. He realizes something's not right. He jumps in the sailboat, and he goes out, and he finds the wall, and he starts to leave the set. He knows the game now. The game is up. He's going to leave. Of course, everybody up in the control room now is going, bonkers. They're saying, can he leave? What happens when he leaves? Can he really do that? And just remember what Ed Harris, who's playing the director, this is what he says. He says, he's always been able to leave. He just didn't know he could leave. That is where we're sitting right now. Okay, we have the opportunity to wake up and to realize the lot, but we have to start looking at things and not. We've been accepting, as I did my whole time in medicine. I go to talks now and I say, I'm Lee Merritt, MD, and I'm a recovering doctor. I believed everything they told me. Now I don't believe anything. I can't. That really doesn't show good, solid, logical, scientific proof. A lot of things. It turns out all this virus stuff, it's just not real. And that's a hard thing for people to buy. They get sick, but you're getting sick because they know in ancient medicine. By the way, their language tells you the whole story. When they said there's a new virus breaking out and spreading around Wuhan that's killing people, they told you the truth, but they told it in the old tongue. Virus in Latin means poison. So these, Hippocrates wrote in the Oath of Hippocrates. Why did he write in there that I will not poison anybody and I will not be paid by somebody else to poison somebody? That's literally in the Hippocratic Oath. Now, if it weren't a problem, it wouldn't be in there. It was a moral problem because people know who's the better to kill people stealthily through poisons than doctors. This is the reality.
The people that people trust because they wear a white lab coat and a stethoscope and they have that DR before their name.
I get you.
Recovering doctor. I like that.
Yeah.
Recovering medical professional. Dr. Lee Merritt, you're amazing. You get rid of parasites. You get rid of a lot of things. Is that right?
Absolutely. I think if we would look at it, ancient medicine only did two things. They get right with God. That's why they had temples where the medical doctors practice, and detoxify yourself. So I think when we look at what really causes disease, and by the way, I have 4 generations of medical books in my house. I went back to see, when did we start talking about viruses? I thought I'd have to go back to my dad's or before. No, my son's book, viruses, but I just had to go back to my own textbooks. In the 1970s, we didn't talk about viruses. If you look up transmission of disease in my big textbook of infectious disease, it talks about parasites.
Wow.
So root causes, now we can think about not only toxins, and not only, you still need to get right with God, but now we have parasites, we have EMF toxicity, and we have nutritional deficiencies. 5 things. I am going to predict to you that
Guys, that right there. Oof, I don't even want to wait to the kind of end. He's nearing it here, but to kind of go over that, like, my goodness, to hone in on those on a personal, individual level is so important. Like nutrition, obviously we covered the fitness a bit here, but the parasites, 100%. Why is it? Ask yourselves. Like cancers, a lot of reported cancers, extreme cancers, life-threatening cancers, have been eradicated through antiparasiticals such as ivermectin. There's endless reporting of that when you actually look into it. EMF, there's a lot on that. And it's very interesting, right around a lot of the reporting of COVID going viral and like the adverse reaction / intended consequences of even this bioweapons jab. I mean, early COVID during the lockdowns, it's mysterious to me. I don't think there's anything conspiratorial about it because, like he said, there's direct evidence and proof to EMF and negative effects on the body. And right during those lockdowns is where they did the mega push install of all those 5G towers nationally and worldwide. Coincidence? Strategic move? When you look into the information deep enough, I believe it takes no rocket scientist. It's pretty telling. It's more so supportive under strategic. Now, it's very problematic to prove intent, but when it's in alignment of supporting the pharmaceuticals, bringing in billions, Depop, like all of what has been gone over and discussed. This is where sourcing information is just so important. Once again, I don't want to get too far off of the main intent here right now is for us to question things that could lead to greater health and more spiritual connection and answering the why as to why we're even here and fulfilling our purposes and ensuring a better tomorrow, not just for us, but for our neighbors, all God's children, and our children. And detoxifying the body so it doesn't hurt to look into things. Now, me personally, on a smaller level, I started doing my own experimentation just to see, well, because I heard certain things, I looked at the actual output on these devices and even cordless earbuds, Bluetooth earbuds, and I had all sorts of different kinds, and I even tested those, and what blew my mind was those actually emitted more of the supposed harmful signals than my even cellular device. And if you think about it, you hold your cellular device up to your head, that's been associated with some things, but that's still on the exterior of your like cranial defensive mass, but your earbuds kind of like bypassing a lot of that and actually inserting into your ear canal. And just think about it. If it's emitting a higher frequency than your cellular device, and then just by that simple positioning. Now, personally, a while back, I was dealing with insane migraines. And it was before I really knew about these things. And luckily, I had someone in my life that started pointing these things out and was like, hey, it's worth giving a shot. And that individual was actually the one with the Ghostbuster machine, I called it, and that showed the actual frequencies that I could see the actual live numbers and stuff for myself. And what it led to was, now you got to understand, on this, I was, building homes, and when I went cordless, it seemed so freeing. I couldn't even fathom. I couldn't even consider in that moment going back to cords. I just couldn't. But then again, I was dealing with debilitating headaches and brain fog, all sorts of things. Now, I have these other things I'm dealing with, such as Lyme disease, so I feel like I'm more susceptible than you all and a lot of folk out there. But the reality of it is, if it was having this devastating impact on me, even though you're not maybe showing the signs I was dealing with, what level of impact is it having? Right? That should be worth questioning for every single one of you. And all this stuff is having like an effect of like the frog, on the stove and slowly turning it up. So versus like setting the frog in a boiling pot of water. So just like diet and changing and shifting to see how you feel, just to take little steps like this. So inevitably, I finally was like, you know what? I'm going to sit down the wireless ones and go back to cords. And within a week, it was actually within a few days, my migraine simmered back. And then within a week, like, it was just gone. Now I still get them due to these other things I'm dealing with, but nowhere near. Like, it is night and day difference. And that is singularly like the one thing I did. And it was clear that had such a negative impact on me that I couldn't even in good conscience give. I think I had upwards of $1,000 worth of earbuds. I couldn't even give those to someone. And in hindsight, I should have stowed them away and probably even reported back to those companies seeking a refund, or I'm just going to blast, now with a platform and whatnot, obviously blast. But all those companies, are you kidding me? Like, I don't believe they had any proper disclaimers or anything regarding those products and the potential impacts. I don't know. You'd have to read through those fine prints. But, yep, threw it all in the trash. And I'll never be going back to it. I mean, there's a reason why these even are corded. I minimize signals due to that impact. I can't afford any negative effects with everything else. Obviously, I'm kind of a unique case that I'm dealing with. Now, that carried over to kind of a home environment. Now, what's beautiful about these bodies God gifted us with, we ought to really treat them like a temple. But they're very resilient. And it's interesting. Some people even talk about it like home biology. We should focus on like our home environment and what is within our control. And the most important like recovering time for our bodies is in fact when we sleep. It's when we grow. It's when, like the most healing happens. So it's really important to have that home environment conducive and healthy for all the repair and damage that we accumulate through the day from hard labor or work or stress or, detoxifying and whatnot. So, like, it's interesting. We are moving more into a technological age than ever before, and these smart homes and seeing is green and just all sorts of stuff, electronic locks and all these modern conveniences and just signal, cordless, easy install. But so there's a level of it that I'm sure is you can have and is just fine. But there's a level to that can be very damning. And you'll just have to do your own research and look into that. And just like a diet, like test some things out for yourself. I know it is unfathomable for some people, just like me, when going to those cordless, back to cords. But now I just can't. Now I can't even fathom or like even consider or think to like proper research, proper everything. And unless it has a positive effect, I'm not even interested in it. Honestly, like it's got to be out there and like proven. But it's just interesting because there was so much brain fog. A lot of people were just tired, during the lockdowns. All these things like started firing up, and that just light bulb moment. That's right around the 5G stuff. Like, so it could be a whole wolf in sheep's clothing where this mysterious bacteria and I'm sure the parasites have been questionably released through lots of means, but how were they getting us kind of in our own homes? Like, so to me, it just turns on, it sounds alarm loud enough that, my gosh, let's look into that 5G and these wavelengths even more. Because once again, it has been proven that it's having a negative impact even on a cellular level within our bodies. And I remember years back even watching a single video, and anyone could even kind of duplicate this experiment under like a microscope where you freeze water and it's just this beautiful picture, right? Like as it freezes, it's symmetrical and the ice crystallization, it's just beautiful under a microscope. But you can add even a 3G, 4G, 5G phone into the mix during that crystallization process, and nothing about it ends up symmetrical. It looks as though you hit the ice with a hammer. It looks cancerish, even, if that's even a word. But cancer-ish. Just looks sickly ice. It's weird. Our bodies are like 90-something% water, like 98% water. You freaking kidding me? It's having an impact on a cellular level. Undoubtedly. So the next experiment I ended up doing, in fact, was I distanced my phone for a while, but I wanted to then rule it out. And I had a Oura Ring monitoring my sleep for months up to that point, and I was getting pretty terrible scores, like 60s, 50s. But I venture to say average, like, 60s, 60s, 70s, right around there. And I just remember like a 20% increase when I started airplane moding my phone at night. Every night. Now, for those that must, for emergency situations, look into landlines. You could even landline, you could direct connect your laptop and turn your laptop into your phone type of thing. Or minimally, you could set your device not bedside and 15 feet away from you if you must. Because there's that kind of distance makes a big impact. Now, by just doing that within no time, my sleep scores went up like 20%. So instead of averaging like 65 or something like that, I was like 85. And it fluctuated, but for the first time ever, I started seeing 90% scores and 80s. And my worst would be like 70s, but I would average 85, sometimes above and below. And, there's things to this day I could improve upon. I've gotten like the red light, or those red glass, I forget what you even call them, knocks out blue light, and tried. I'm still pretty bad on maybe watching something before I go to bed, or playing on a device, or even time here in the studio where I'm on a laptop. But up to a certain point, just like working out or drinking coffee right before bed, there's going to be negative impacts. So there's a lot of things to look into, but it's so important that we focus on getting quality sleep, and we just don't know. So take some steps on detoxifying. And this is what's so wild. Coming out of where I just was a couple days ago, I was delirious, out of body experience as I was walking through a fog. Nothing felt real. And in that state, you can't even imagine, like, oh yeah, you're just existing. But now, like, even already a couple days out of that, having this kind of shift, it is worth dying to feel better. So anyone feeling that lethargic, depressive, sickly, no energy, brain fog, gosh darn, it's worth, I'm telling you, within your control, getting healthier foods, focusing on your intake, getting clean water, getting an RO system, airplane moding your phone, setting it 15 feet away, substituting for cords. Sauna. I hear red light saunas are even kind of more beneficial on detoxifying the body and fighting inflammation within the body versus your traditional saunas, but your traditionals are still better. And I don't have access to the red light one. I have a little red light panel, which helps, but not the red light sauna. So I just utilize the saunas at the gym for detoxifying and water fasting. And there's so many things you could do. And I'm telling you, when you start feeling better, you're like, why didn't I try this sooner? Like all the other things go away, and you're just ambitious. You're excited. It is so worth it. I don't understand how we kind of accept this level of deteriorated state. Like, it's just the new norm. I don't get it. It has that type of impact. I'm sure intended impact. And it's so worth fighting. Once again, sole purpose of this episode is I genuinely want to see the best versions of you So let's start these discussions. Let's find out what's working for folk, and genuinely, and I know these things have had astronomical impacts on some people, and I'm interested on doing more things too, like getting out in the sunlight, grounding more, um, taking cold showers, just pushing myself out of my comfort zones. I'm kind of getting fired back up here. There's so many things, and let's figure out the right balance of things for all of us on an individual level, and you just don't know until you start trying these things. And it's so worth it. I'm telling you. I think they're about to wrap up here. Let's finish this up.
Don't find too many other root causes. We need to start looking at those things and not letting us play disease, what I call disease whack-a-mole. We go from, remember how they tried to convince us, oh, now it's monkeypox.
Yeah.
Next it's going to be Marburg.
Marburg, yeah.
Next it's going to be, It's all nonsense, people. We have to stop looking. We don't let them play disease whack-a-mole on us anymore. Don't keep running around. That's fear. And when they're desperate, we're winning because now they're breaking out in wars.
Yeah, they tried so hard pushing COVID 2.0. And it was you, all of you, that didn't start wearing face diapers again and 6 foot and all the shenanigans. Like, they couldn't pull it off again. It's insane that they were able to conjure up the fear and all the things and create the pandemic before. It's insane that so many fell prey to that. It only took place because we allowed it.
It's all the same structure. It's the same people. Because, see, in Truman's Show, it was easy. They only had one person to control. They had maybe 30 people up in the control room and all these people to write the script. What do you do when you have 200, 300 people in the control room and 8.5 billion in the show? Okay, that's where we are. We outnumber these guys 1 million or 2 million to 1.
Which is why they will have no safe place to hide when 8.5 billion people finally realize what has been done to them. Yep. When they wake up in the Truman Show, when they no longer have the fear of water.
Or the fear of each other. The fear that I might get a disease because you coughed on me.
Yeah.
Or the fear that you're a terrorist and I'm not. They're dividing us along every line they can use to divide us when we realize.
Guys, I was around, I don't even know, 10, 12 plus sick people over the holidays, day after day. Kids crawling on me with drool and snot and sneezing in my face. As I'm compromised, everything that we've been taught, like disease and germ-wise, kind of almost was just out the window because I was compromised, all these things, and I was in that place, and I was like kind of uncomfortable. I was like, oh man, kid just literally sneezed in my mouth while I was eating, and it's just, well, I'm done. All I did was take low doses of like ivermectin every other day. And I was like, man, the last thing I need amongst this lull is to get sick. I feel like now I'm out of the woods. If I was to get it, I was to have gotten it. But there was no fertile ground, I believe, for parasites to transfer over, and that was impacting my nieces and nephews and siblings. Like, I attribute ivermectin solely as the thing that kept me from contracting, I believe, these parasites. Anyway, just had to swear by that because everyone else started dropping like flies. So I started divvying out and sourcing and things for them to get ivermectin to get well. But why even wait to that point when you have something to keep you from even getting unwell?
It's really humanity against the uber parasites. It's over.
That's right. Dr. Lee Merritt, couldn't have said it better myself.
They're dividing us along every line they can use to divide us.
Yes, they are. From everything. We've covered a lot of that.
We realize it's really humanity against the uber parasites. It's over.
That's right.
It's over.
Dr. Lee Merritt, couldn't have said it better myself.
Wow.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. By the way, purgesuddenly.com, purgesuddenly.com, if you want to find a good anti-parasitic. This is why ivermectin, by the way, was such a big deal, during the whole COVID thing, an anti-parasitic. Well, now you don't need a prescription. Go to purgesuddenly.com. Again, purgesuddenly.com. More on that right now. Look around at what's going on right now. Banks are collapsing all over the place.
Holy smokes. Yeah, it's a wonder, huh? Why they demonized HCQ and ivermectin as much as they did during the pandemic, right? And even now. Horse dewormer and all the shenanigans. Like, because it's... wow. It's actually insanely beneficial for us. Don't want us to really look into a cure. And heck, they couldn't have that. They couldn't have had their pandemic, and they couldn't have had their push of a bioweapon jab. Their war machine, mainstream media, would have all this censored. And for good reason, because then they couldn't have the level of manipulation they want to have on the public. I mean, guys, you got to just open your eyes. There's nothing conspiratorial in all these labels they put on it. It's literally, they're just trying to keep a level of manipulation over everyone and keep them living in fear and lining up to get whatever, like just lining up for whatever. They just want full control, guys. That's not God's plan for you. I know that. Now, once again, I can't wait. I can't wait to see everyone well and the best versions of themselves. And we need that going into this year. So with that, I hope you found some of this informative. Look forward to having more discussion on that. Heck, it'd be great to have some of these doctors on, which I in fact will be having some well-learned doctors in the know. Ones that are Lyme literate, which is essentially just know depth about Lyme disease, in depth, and a lot of what's been going on, the dangers of that jab, and what they've been seeing on not just the clinical stat side of things, but even on a biological sense in researching. I love you guys. I can't wait. Let's all get to a healthy place and not allow the few to dictate and rule over the many. It can continue if we want to just focus on our freaking football games and forget. Like, it's just so crazy to me. We had a game on just to cater to a friend that was requesting the other day, and it was wild. As soon as we found it, it was just insane to me. Pfizer commercial. It's just like, when are we going to pull them from our health, medical side of things? Like, they've shown their colors more than once, and throughout all the years, they shouldn't be in that industry in any way, shape, or form. They're 100% part of the problem. And it's fairly easy to see when you just do some research and start listening to some actual news sources. Anyway, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much. Look forward to talking soon. Have a good evening.